Technology can either make your life as a marketer easier, or it can make your life so much harder. Now, which one do you want? Your ability as a business to keep up with all those changing environments is crucial. You will die if you cannot get ahead of the curve and innovate at a speed at which you can still surprise, delight your customers.
Sales, marketing, and tech. The only reason that you need the technology is to deliver the marketing, and the marketing you only need to deliver the sales. So the three things have to work holistically together.
Whenever somebody says, oh, I'm afraid AI is going to take my job, if you're afraid, that's a bad sign. Original thinking can never be replaced. You can use the tools at your disposal to make your output better, but the output has to come from inside your brain first. No technology in the world can take that from you.
If you don't authentically own what you're saying, you're stealing stuff.
Stealing content, original content, is not okay. We need to find new solutions to the new problems that we're having. And on the other hand, do we want to create a world where access to data is a privilege?
So hello, Jasmin, and welcome to Marketing in the Madness. I'm super excited to have you here today because we've kind of at Street delved into the world of MACH, and we work with a lot of the tech companies and agencies in the space. But I actually come from, a very digital background where I used to lead sales and marketing for digital agencies that worked with platforms like Sitecore. And it feels like, platforms like Contentstack have come in, swooped along and totally changed. Do you still refer to yourselves as DXPs? Please excuse me if I'm old school. Yeah, fab. So before we get into exploring a bit about you, exploring about what's going on in the world of marketing and technology and what we should all be aware of right now, I would love to know a little bit more about Jasmin and specifically Contentstack, because it's one of the MACH Alliance partner companies that I haven't worked with as much yet, and I'm here to learn.
Wonderful. That's the best possible base to start from. A little bit about Jasmin. So interesting that you just said that digital background. Same here. I actually started out in an advertising agency, what feels like ages ago, but I really learned the tools of the trade from the ground up. I started as a junior account executive back in the day, and was just marveled at all the fantastic brands, but also at all the gazillion things that you could be doing and all the things that you shouldn't be doing, and sort of keeping them apart because it's so easy to get lost in the flurry of things. And I think that's actually something that hasn't gotten better. It's actually gotten worse, way worse, which is exactly where technology can come in and should come in, because technology at the end of the day can either make your life as a marketer easier, or it can make your life so much harder. Now, which one do you want?
Yeah, well, you want the one that's going to make it easier, right? But isn't it funny? Similarly to you, I actually started in publishing, but working and selling advertising space to ad agencies, and then my career has kind of always been around and in that space. But traditionally was much more in that kind of creative marketing, cool advertising space. And tech and the tech teams always felt like this kind of boring, geeky, not as cool part of the business, which just is not the case anymore. I'm more excited about technology because, look, AI, look at everything that's happening in the world right now. We cannot avoid it. We cannot ignore it, and we cannot not adopt and understand the new things that are happening. So I'm super excited to understand where you guys are at, because I know you've been trailblazing in the sector for a long time.
Yeah, and that's to hinge on that point just really quickly. I think that is one of the fundamental changes that we see. Marketing and what we used to call IT are still in some cases two very, very different ends of the spectrum, when what they really should be is two sides of the same coin. And that's what Contentstack strives to do as a company, make it make it easier for both marketers and developers. IT, I think, is a term that needs to die, because information technology, what is that? It's either everything or nothing. So bringing marketing and developers closer together, reducing the dependencies so that each of their kind is free to go do what they actually like doing. I don't know a single marketer, myself included, who enjoys raising a Jira ticket for the developers to get to some small item on a website. No, please do not make me do that. And I think every developer in the world will equally say, oh my goodness, please not another IT support ticket that says, can you please fix the typo on page, I don't know, fill in the blank. That's not what the marketer signed up to do. Creative, we just talked about that. A great marketer thrives in an environment where he or she can be creative. A great developer doesn't like to do 526 tickets in a backlog. A great developer signed on to do equally creative, different but equally creative work in the tech stack, and building a tech stack that has the capabilities that will actually get you ahead as a business. And that is the other thing that I think fundamentally has changed. The speed at which markets develop, the speed at which customer expectations skyrocket, not just rise, skyrocket. And your ability as a business to keep up with all those changing environments is crucial. You will die if you cannot not just keep up, but actually get ahead of the curve and innovate at a speed at which you can still surprise, delight your customers. Because then and only then can you create something like brand loyalty, which is super rare these days because so many of the things that we do have become transactional or commoditized. So I think that's where Contentstack really tries to make the biggest difference. We're really trying to enable both the marketers and the developers to break free, to do what they signed up to do in the first place, because ultimately that will reduce better results and it will make your employees happier. What else could you ask for?
Yeah, it's win-win when you look at it like that. And I think that's the key step change. Is there's also these roles that are coming together, right? It's not just marketing and tech anymore. There are creative technologists out there. People, we want the whole of the tech industry and techies themselves to be able to, like you say, to have the ability to overcome the problems that the business needs them to overcome. So enabling them to do that and enabling them to understand and bringing everyone into the conversation. I think it's changing, like you say, rapidly. It'll be really interesting in a few years to see if it's even still separated. It's a bit like the same with sales and marketing, which also drives me insane. They should not be separate things. But I mean, then we're bringing three together, basically. Sales, marketing, tech. But that's where the magic happens. I mean, that's effectively what we're all trying to do in marketing. Sales, marketing, and tech. The only reason that you need the technology is to deliver the marketing, and the marketing you only need to deliver the sales. So the three things have to work holistically together. You have to be able to understand the reasons why, and also think, I guess, around that bigger picture piece, how you can get ahead and how these, and I referenced DXPs earlier for our listeners who maybe don't know what a DXP is. It's a digital experience platform, which 100% is what we're all trying to create in the now very digital world that we live in. Is it's experiences that are memorable, that drive that brand advocacy. So it's great to see, platforms like Contentstack enabling businesses and individuals within those businesses to get there faster, more quickly, more efficiently, and start to make the changes that they needed to change, which often took a lot of heavy lifting and reintegrating a big, a new platform often, which is fine. And I guess that's the whole architecture of Mac and composable architecture, is that it is composable. But traditionally people were stuck on these big monolithic platforms that they absolutely couldn't change, not without a lot, or the platform making some updates and you were waiting for them to do the next release. I remember it. I was selling it into clients way back when. So tell me what's happening now and changing. What Contentstack, I guess, stands for is what I'm after, and how it's helping brands and businesses do exactly that, deliver those experiences.
Yeah. And I'll quote one of our customers, because, I can talk about it all day long, whether you believe it or not, up to you. But what our customer, Andreas Westendorp from MS Sleep, said beautifully is the switch to Contentstack is the last re-platforming that he will ever have to do. Full stop. Because I think that is what we're seeing. If you are still on a monolithic system, is what we call the legacy players, Sitecore, Adobe, Salesforce, that kind of thing, it is very hard for you to move at the speed that you need to move at. And it's very hard for you to do anything that is outside of what the vendor that you're currently with foresaw that you would need. So, as long as you stay within the given parameters and you don't mind that you're paying for 100% while you're only using 20, that's a good place to be. But now, enter the scenario where you need something different, or the evolving market conditions command that you do something different, but you're locked in a certain way of doing things, because guess what? Sitecore is not going to change their offering, their platform, just because you, one of how many of our customers, wants a bespoke solution. Not happening. All you have to do is to look at SAP, who basically blackmailed their customers into upgrading by refusing to, let them free. And now all of a sudden you're stuck in your stack.
Yeah.
And there's no way out for you. That is a hostage situation.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not the place that you want to be in as a brand or a company that wants to move quicker and really keep up with the ever-growing market demands. So if you move to a composable architecture, a composable digital experience platform, that sounds, huge, but it really isn't. And that is the beautiful thing. Start small is the one recommendation that we give all of our customers. Pick one piece that is an incredible pain in the butt today, and maybe that's search, or maybe it's checkout, or maybe it's whatever it is that is really giving you sleepless nights. Pick that one piece and start running a proof of concept, POC, with that. And then take it from there. And then you can add on step by step by step, which is exactly what the word composable stands for. You can add on individual pieces at the speed that you're comfortable with and at the time that you're comfortable with it. You don't need to change everything all at once. You shouldn't change everything all at once. Because there's also a people component and a training component that is so often overlooked. Introduce changes step by step, one at a time, and do it at a time that is right for your company. I just had a wonderful conversation with Earth Riser from Topgolf Callaway, who said, there are certain windows of time across the year where I am not touching our technology. Black Friday, January sales cycles. I only have a few windows of weeks per year to do this kind of stuff, but that's exactly what I do. Here's a small piece now. Here's another small piece in 6 weeks' time. Here's another small piece in 12 weeks' time. And she's purposely not touching the periods where people are stressed out anyways, because they need to make sure that they produce the right outcomes for the business. And that's, I think, very important to understand as a vendor, because we're really trying to help our customers be better than they were yesterday and grow their business. And that's such a beautiful thing to see that come to life. And it really is about giving you the options that you need, but also not overwhelming your staff and your teams with a bunch of new things that they don't know how to operate and that scare them, quite frankly. So take your time, introduce it bit by bit, start with something small, relatively small, where you can prove the value that it will bring to the company. And then that sets you up on a trajectory that is not to be.
Yeah. And I think you have to, for me, work like that now. And it's been incredible to see, I've worked in this space and in the world of digital marketing my entire career. So, over 20 years now, 23, 4 years, can't think, that sort of gives my age away a bit. So it's been incredible for me to watch how that change has happened, because it was traditionally, the brands I've worked with huge brands in the UK, from Channel 4 to Cancer Research, Vodafone, where we'd at the time, so they were already either on one of these monoliths, but like you say, it couldn't do all of the things that they wanted to do. But actually breaking it down and buying the specialist platforms that you need that are going to work best for you, your team, the outcomes that you want as a business and as individuals, because there's so many things to consider when you're trying to, even for me as a small business, the amount of platforms, I did a post about this today, that we use is huge. But I don't want to be, and I can't be, locked into any of them. But what I think is really great about Composable, and specifically how the MACH Alliance is you all play really nice together. So, we put on a lot of events, and it will often be 4 or 5 different, Composable MACH Alliance members coming together to talk about how the platforms can integrate together, how you can get the best out of them working together, showing some use cases for, huge brands we've had, talking about all of this kind of stuff. It's incredible, from Danone to Vodafone have been on the podcast, Rafa. There's some really great use cases, and it's really starting to come through now. And I think what's lovely for me to see is, one, it's cheaper, better, faster. Like, that's huge. But also is the way that you all play nice together, because it used to be, Sitecore hates Adobe and Adobe hates Sitecore, and they probably still do. And I'm sure there are, people, brands out there that are still very competitive. But it feels like a much nicer, playground now, because everyone is playing nice together, and they understand, of course, your Contentstack, you're going to have, some of my clients are probably competitors of yours, but there's room and space for you all to play. And there's going to be micro differences sometimes in the platforms, but differences in the platforms that work for different businesses. And you have to understand that, that's the right play. And it feels, feels a bit more of a Gen Z. It feels a bit more like, we're trying to do the right things with technology now, rather than, like you say, and I think, we're going to get some great social clips out of that, kind of trapping people in, like holding them hostage to this. And I don't know if I'm going to say this. We can always block it out. I feel a bit like that with a platform we use at the moment, because I cannot do everything I need to do. They hold me in. They won't respond to anything without charging me more money. And not that the platform isn't brilliant. It is in lots of ways, but there are lots of things that aren't working for us. I'm not getting the support and the help that we need as a small business. I'm at the point now where I'm like, do you know what? I feel like I'm being held hostage. It's just a money game for them. I'm not valued. I can't get out. I'm stuck. And it's frustrating. So I can see why this, from an outsider's point of view and an insider's point of view on a very, much smaller scale, that how frustrating that is, when you're trying to innovate and make a difference and you can't because the technology is holding you back.
And I'm so sorry to hear that, first off, because you're stuck on your stack.
Yeah, I'm stuck on my stack. I am basically doing what we're talking about.
And that's exactly why we co-founded the MACH Alliance 3 years ago. I mean, think about that. The trajectory of the MACH Alliance is really mind-blowing. We started out in 2020 with 5 companies, 5, who got together and said, hey, guess what? We need to get over ourselves. We're trying to educate the market on why Composable is the thing. We can all see it, but as long as we keep showing up in the conversations individually, we're never going to get anywhere. This is not going to work. So how about we all, leave our egos at the door and we build something that is bigger than the individual pieces. And that's how the MACH Alliance came to life. And I mean, fast forward 3 years later, we've crossed the 100 member threshold, and there's giant companies like Google and AWS, and there's very small players, startups, that are about to do something really cool, and everything in between. And there's a bunch of CMS vendors, there's a bunch of payment vendors, there's a bunch of search vendors, and everybody plays nicely, because that is the onset of what we agreed to do. If you're unable or unwilling to play nice, we're not going to have you as a member. And Contentstack pioneered that kind of thinking. We have a program that is called Care Without Compromise. And that's very, it's a speaking name, because what we have said from the very beginning is you will have more than one vendor if you go composable. That's fact. There's nothing wrong with that and nothing bad about it. Now, of course, what prospects say is, oh yeah, but then, what do I do if something goes wrong? Are you all just going to point fingers at each other and send me to the next person because they are the ones to blame, not you? And that's where Contentstack countered in the very first place and said, hey, guess what? If something goes wrong and you tell us about it, we will not care. We will not point fingers where the problem occurred. We will just solve it for you. Leave it to us. We'll figure it out with the other vendors that are in the mix, and we will come back to you with the solution. And you do not need to worry about that. And that really is the spirit of Composable, and also the spirit of the MACH Alliance. Is there is plenty of different ways to build a solution for a business. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. And we all need to be comfortable with the fact that what works for one doesn't work for the other. And we need to work hand in hand to create the best possible solution for that company that is trying to solve a problem. It has to be about the business benefit, full stop.
I think, as a business, if I was head of marketing, head of digital, listening to exactly what you've just said, that's why I'd want to choose a MACH Alliance member, because it's about working together to get the best outcome, not forcing anyone down a route that they don't want to be down, or, holding them hostage. It's about coming together to provide really amazing, innovative solutions. And honestly, hand on heart, we are, I'm not a partner of the MACH Alliance, but we work with a lot of the members. So like you say, there's 100 members, 100 businesses that are members. We probably work with 5-10 of those regularly. And it's just amazing this is real, this is really happening. These collaborations, how the platforms are integrating, working together to build these best in breed solutions is, it's just fantastic and a huge step change. I mean, like you say, the velocity in the last 3-4 years is incredible to see. So exciting time to come. Now, on that, I have got something else I wanted to ask you. I mean, Jasmin, so just ask a question. Poor Jasmin,
Bring it on.
Poor Jasmin, by the way, did not have a brief or anything for today's session, which we do usually do. But actually, I think we're going to get better content because we didn't. I mean, Emma, who works with me on the podcast, did very quickly pull something together, but we've just ignored it. Sorry, Emma. Sorry, Emma. Yeah, just was. We did read it really. So one thing that I am super keen to hear about, and forgive me for being mean because I haven't prepped you, is things that you're seeing Contentstack do that is really changing the game for the brands and the businesses that you're working for. So, this podcast is called Marketing in the Madness. So I really like to uncover the innovations, the cool stuff, the things that we're saying, right? These platforms can really help propel you. So what are the things that, whether it's a use case for a brand, yes, please, or, just something that you're seeing happen right now that maybe you're not allowed to talk about yet because it's not been released, but what's happening that's super exciting?
Great question. I have a little bit of everything. So,
go for it.
We're, okay. First things first, what's already out and what's really, really revolutionizing the way marketers can actually work in their content management system is both our Launch and our Automation Hub features. So Launch is front-end hosting. as part of a headless CMS, which is not self-explanatory in a sense that those two things didn't go together or don't go together in most cases. A headless CMS is per se backend. What we've added as an optional capability for you to choose if you so like, you don't have to. And that's the one thing that I have to say. Everything is optional, and everything should be optional in the composable space, because if you would like to connect your toaster oven and it has an API, for God's sake, go do it.
Yeah.
We'll do it for you. If that's your wish, your wish is our command. If not, and you would like it easy, we've got a solution for that too. So Launch enables you to very, very quickly preview your website and actually put them live within a matter of minutes. No tickets, no nothing. You have a live preview function. You're good to go in seconds. Done deal. You can use it, you don't have to. But it's such a fantastic addition to the stack if you just want to move faster and really launch things faster. We're very descriptive in our name picking. And Automation Hub is probably the most exciting thing that's already out, because what it enables you to do is build automations for your most important and your most often occurring processes. So think about your translation process, just as an example. For many companies, that is not a straightforward thing. It involves a lot of manual steps. Somebody writes the copy. The copy is being proofread. The proofread copy needs to go to a translator or is being translated by Google, whatever, is being translated. Comes back, needs to be reviewed, needs to be approved, needs to be published wherever you want to. The number of steps that I've just described is ridiculous if you think about it. And there's multiple different human beings interspersed throughout that process, every one of which is a potential mistake maker, error producer. And I don't mean it bad. I've been there. If you have 15 gazillion things to do, those are the ones that tend to slip. What you can do with Automation Hub is you can set it up as an automated process. So all you need to do is say, here's the copy. Now notify person X. Push it to vendor Y. Make sure you can automate the whole process that we just talked about. So what it will do is it will run the process for you. It will pull in all the relevant people that you've specified beforehand, and then you will arrive at an automatically published, updated, translated copy with just that one click that you had to do in the beginning. Now, how much time does that free up for you to do the things that you would actually like to do?
Very clever. For me, and then maybe there is a tool out there. Maybe you can tell me live. But what I need that is for everything. But we don't sell stuff on a website, so for me, it's about the social content. And we do use ChatGPT, and I do use ChatGPT to help me write my posts. But there's a lot of manual time that goes into me rewriting them, or I'll write something, give it to ChatGPT, it will send something back. I then need to put it in my own tone, but also evolve and change things and add the personal things in that are relevant, which a computer will never be able to do. They won't know. The computer's not going to know what I was doing yesterday. I can say, yesterday I did this, and please add that in, which I do sometimes. But what I would love is a AI tool that I can feed in, hook into my LinkedIn, my Instagram. This is me. This is how I talk. This is my tonality for me or for my business, and the same for Street. But then can actually go and, it will get there, right? And it is scary because at some point the authenticity starts to go, and especially when the most of the use cases I see, which I 100% don't do, just so you all know, is people using it to create their ideas for content. I don't like doing that. The way I use ChatGPT is to do research, i.e. you can ask it, tell me about the problems that this sector is facing right now, or whatever research I need to do. And then I will create my own content plan. I don't say, what can I write about? Because I should, be clever enough to work out what the problems my audience face and the content I should be creating. But then I will use it to help create those posts. But at some point it's going to be able to do all of it, right? I mean, it can do all of it now, but just not very well because the content doesn't come out as good as it could do.
Well, see, that's where the intersection is between, yes, it can do everything, but it will suck.
Yeah.
And that will differentiate you from the people or businesses out there that don't go that extra mile. To thinking can never be replaced. Original thinking can never be replaced. Having help with all the research and with, finding initial words, a first draft for something where the ideas are in your head, but now you have something. Reacting to something is so much easier than coming up with all the words by yourself. So I think that's a very smart way to use the tools that we have available today. But it's also important to stay non-reliant, right? Because your ideas need to be your ideas. The machine cannot create ideas for you. It can help you execute. No, and probably execute much better or faster or both than even last year. Because if you have to sit down and get it all out of your head, that is so much harder.
Yeah.
But don't rely on it. Your critical thinking, not just in business, but generally in life, is probably the one most important life skill. So don't get lazy. Don't think that technology can solve it all for you. You need to train your brain.
It's this real juxtaposed position with AI because you're like, I need to understand it. I need to get my brain around it. And I'm going to have to push myself to do that. But then it's going to make me lazy. It's a funny one to get your head around.
Right. But that will differentiate you. Yeah. So that's where I'm like, whenever somebody says, oh, I'm afraid AI is going to take my job. Well, if you're afraid, that's a bad sign. Fear is never a good place to operate from. Find something that you're passionate about, find something that you want to understand, and find something that keeps you on your toes while you're digging deeper and deeper and deeper into that. No technology in the world can take that from you. And by being an expert in something, whatever that something is, you make yourself irreplaceable. And then you can use the tools at your disposal to make your output better. But the output has to come from inside your brain first.
And I think that's true. When you're thinking about teams, they are scared. People are worried about their jobs. AI is going to take my job. Don't shy away from looking at it. That means you need to look at it even more because you need to become the expert that is the amazing person that can get the most out of these technologies, that can utilize AI in a better way than any of your colleagues can so that you keep your job, right?
And use it to your advantage. I mean, that to me, it kind of feels like the glass half full, glass half empty discussion, age old, will never die. And you need to be the glass half full. You need to have the glass half full mindset because yes, there is risk, and I'm not trying to negate that. Data privacy, copyright. We just saw a huge lawsuit by the New York Times against, the creators. Interested to see how that's going to shake out.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen all the time. I actually spoke about that on this very podcast in this very room with Charlie Bell from Contentful, and sorry, I probably shouldn't say that you kind of are competitors, but everything's
we
open
all play
here.
nicely.
But you do play nicely. So, and he was saying exactly that, and he then pulled out. We'd actually spoken about that happening a few weeks ago, and it's happened. And he pulled out the content on LinkedIn the other day. He was like, we're actually seeing the future here because, he was like, oh, your podcast seeing the future. I was like, no, Charlie, you're seeing the future. It's nothing to do with me. But, that is a super interesting space to watch because, if you don't authentically own what you're saying and you're stealing stuff from other people, I don't know, it's going to be interesting.
And on the other hand, do we want to create a world where access to data is a privilege and only certain people have access to certain kinds of data sets? Because that basically used to be the Middle Ages.
Yeah, I know.
Do we want to go back to the Middle Ages just, a few centuries later because history keeps repeating itself? I don't think that's the right way to go about it, but we need to find new solutions to the new problems that we're having. Stealing content, original content, is not okay either. Don't get me wrong. But, data used to be something that was only available to scholars. So only if you were a monk or, royalty, you had access to books. I have a feeling some people at least are moving in that direction, and that is dangerous. So we need to find common ground and middle ground that keeps the opportunities open, but also doesn't exploit the great work that some smart brains have done.
Yeah. Well, it's
difficult space.
It is a difficult space, even that people won't be able to afford it. Some people just won't be able to afford it. Like, I feel like it's really interesting, like how this spans across everything. My daughter's studying for her GCSEs, and there's a platform called Seneca Learning. Didn't know anything about it until a couple of weeks ago, but she was like, Mum, can I get this Seneca Learning? My friend's got it and it looks really good. And she's pretty much she's cramming at the moment because she's doing her mocks, but she's pretty much using that platform to do most of her learning. Of course, we have to pay for it. It's on a subscription. But there's also an AI subscription upgrade, which enables her to learn much more. So I can afford it. So I was like, she wasn't even that bothered about having it. I was like, no, I think you should have it. Like, have the AI upgrade. I'm really into AI at the moment. Like, definitely get the upgrade, because now she can ask it anything and it will help give her the answer. I mean, she's still got to learn it, remember it, and go and do her exams. But potentially she's at a massive advantage to lots of people who maybe can't afford to pay for that technology and that AI. So there's so much that goes into this. It makes my mind boggle.
Oh, totally. And it will all depend on how she's using it, though.
Yes.
Because if she's using it to make it easier for her now, writing her homework and all that kind of good stuff, it'll make her life harder down the road.
Future. Yeah, I'm so with you on that. No, it's not like that. This is purely learning. Okay. It's not a doing. It's a learning, if that makes sense. But there are out there. And I'm sure there are lots of kids that are using ChatGPT. I mean, she doesn't do that, but I'm sure there are lots of kids that are using ChatGPT to write their articles, or their papers. Like they're going to be developing the content that they need for their exams and their coursework using AI. And she's not doing that.
Yeah, good. Because, I feel very sorry for those kids in a sense, because it will come crashing down on you later.
Yeah.
But that's so true generally. It's great life advice, not just for your daughter, but for anyone listening. There's two kinds of choices. There's one set of choices that make your life easier now, but harder later. And there's the choices that make your life harder now, but much easier later. Exercise regularly now, you will have a much better life for the rest of your life. Don't exercise now because it's convenient. There's a dinner, there's the couch, there's chips, there's Netflix.
Love all of those things.
But that will make your life so much freaking harder once you get old. You'll be in pain. You won't be able to play with your grandkids. You won't be able to travel. But the problem is that all of those bad things only happen in the future. And our brains are so bad at projecting, what is it actually going to do for me? We're so into the instant gratification, and Gen Z even more, unfortunately, because they haven't had a chance in most cases to build that kind of resilience. You need to work to get to point A or B or C. And for most of them, everything has always been available. So, I think there's a word looking at struggle down the road, because either the workplace changes a giant amount, because what we're having today is a workplace that is designed for the baby boomers. I'm not even happy with that.
Yeah.
And I classify as xennial, which is odd, but it's, the few years between 79 and 85, I think.
Yes.
Just on the border.
Oh, that means I'm with you then.
See? We both gave away our age.
Yeah, I thought I was a millennial, but I'm not.
Yeah, and it is a subsegment of millennial, funny enough. But it's that very specific, that was the breaking point for digital, really. right? So you and I grew up without mobile phones.
Yeah.
I did not have a mobile phone until I was 16, 17.
Yeah, 15 I got mine, and
There
it
you
was in
go.
a docking station next to my
Giant
bed. You had
thing,
to
yeah.
turn it off to charge it. I mean, I think I had a pager
Yeah.
at one point before that. so I
One
could-
line text message display.
Yeah.
And you had to wait for the text to scroll to the left so you could actually read the
Yeah.
rest of it. Yeah. Hey.
Old school. And also, like, learning computers wasn't compulsory.
No,
at
and
my
we
school,
didn't
it
even
just
have
wasn't.
a computer. No.
Yeah.
I learned typewriting in high school.
Yeah.
And that was like revolutionary.
Yeah.
And but it taught you a few very relevant life skills that are not in such high demand today. If you wanted to meet a friend, you had to pick up the phone, you had to call them, you had to speak to their mom first or their dad and get over that, social awkwardness of, hey, I'm trying to speak to,
Yeah.
So you set up an appointment. There was no way of canceling that appointment on short notice. You had to show up
Yeah.
in the space at the time.
Such a good point.
And I cannot tell you these days how many short cancellations I get just because people feel like, oh yeah, it's kind of okay to just say, yeah, I don't feel like it.
Yeah. Rude.
No, yeah, completely. You only do that to me once, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is, it's the way that we were brought up. It's just so the behaviors of the younger generations now are different. Like
Right.
my daughter, the amount of times, she's 15, the amount of times I'm like, we're on the way to her friend's house and I was like, can you just call them to get them to come outside? I can't get, she's going, I can't get hold of them. Phone them. And they just don't want to pick up the phone. And my daughter's really confident, but that just doesn't happen. They don't phone each other. I'm like, just tell her to come. And she's like Snapchatting her or, I don't know,
goodness,
messaging up. I'm like, just tell her to come outside. Like, this is basic stuff. Like, it's almost like they're nervous to, and even I can feel myself getting like that. Like, how often, when someone just phones me, I'm almost like, oh, how rude.
Yeah.
You're phoning me. That's a bit odd because I'm the queen of voice notes. Anyone who knows me
Really?
well, no, yeah, I literally voice note. I mean, I can't be bothered to type because I haven't got enough time. And I haven't really used the voice to type stuff enough. So I literally voice note everyone. But that's bad as well because almost I can feel myself. And I'm a really, host a podcast. I talk a lot. I've grown up in sales where I had to pick up the phone and, I absolutely am not scared of this, but I can feel myself getting to a place because of the technology.
Oh yeah.
Where I'm like, oh no, I can't phone them. Which
yeah,
is mad.
It is to me too, but that's a generational thing.
Yeah.
I call people, but by now I'm very considerate who I call.
Yes.
Because there's only a certain set of people that will appreciate it and actually be comfortable having an impromptu conversation.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the point, right? You have to, if I have to Slack you so I can call you, what it tells me is that, you're afraid.
Or you're not I can't trust you because you're not doing something, or you're doing something you shouldn't be, or
yeah. And then at the same time, number of calls I have received at Contentstack, 0. Because everybody slacks all the time, which is driving me freaking mad. If we're talking about madness here for a second. Slack to me is more a curse than blessing, I will say that. And actually Slack forbids its employees to be on Slack after a certain hour because it's so easy to get lost in the frenzy of messages and nothing substantial is ever communicated in Slack. I'm sorry, full stop. That's where the good old email actually should have more space back. Because if I'm trying to make a relatively complex case and I need a decision, but I also need a paper trail of how we arrived at that decision and what the decision is, Slack is not the place to do that. But I see a lot of people doing everything in Slack because it's so easy. Yeah. Quick message here, quick message there. And then, you don't know where you are at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, communication is changing. I mean that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Jasmin, I'm going to have to end this episode now. But guys, don't worry. If you're enjoying it, I'm stopping this recording because Jasmin and I have got some other really important content to cover. So, Jasmin, thank you for sharing everything around, everything that we've spoken about, AI, marketing, technology. Like, you are just an absolute inspiration. And if you're interested, guys, the next episode I'm recording with Jasmin, which is going to be much shorter, is very specifically around what we need to do in the marketing and tech industry specifically, I'm using this word a lot, to enable women to have more seats at the table, have a more, I never know the right words to use here, Jasmin. What would you say? We're looking for equality, which sadly we still don't have. And as part of my partnership with MadFest, we're going to be recording some content about that now. So buy this podcast. If you're enjoying this, come and listen to the next one next week.